Dan Ashworth has told Newcastle, the sporting director of Newcastle, has told Newcastle that he wanted to go to Manchester United, which we kind of expected done. He's been put on gardening leave until the two clubs find an agreement. If you were Sir Jim Ratcliffe and in charge at United, how much would you pay for Dan Ashworth?
I don't know. I find it really weird.
It is weird. I don't think any other sporting director before has been kind of signed.
Call me naive, Jules, right? But I think sporting director role is the easiest role, the easiest job. It is, man.
But too many transfers are wrong, so it can't be that easy.
Well,
Otherwise,
but they're no good. Me and you watch loads of football. All you have to do if you're a sporting director, right? You say to the manager, what position do you want? And he goes, left back. Yeah. You watch enough football to find the best left backs. Yeah. You've got a data team underneath you who can hit you with 1 million stats. How hard can this job be? Seriously, if you know football, how hard can it be?
I mean,
put a number on it, 10 million.
10 you let him go.
Would
you go higher?
I mean, you'd want as much as you can if you're Newcastle, don't get me wrong. Higher, the more the merrier, but Newcastle fans are built differently. Newcastle fans will say, if you don't want to be at Newcastle, where it's a privilege to play here, to coach here, to be a sporting director here, off you pop.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because they'll get another one, or they'll trust whoever's going to be in charge in the future.
Eddie Howe. So, I think he will probably be around the 10 million. I think he's great, Dan Ashworth, and I think United make a good signing. For Newcastle, you've probably got it to lose him, but
let's mean you got to college, it would be sporting directors.
Right, well, if Eddie Howe is looking for somebody, you know
your French football, you know our European football.
Exactly.
I'm on Serie A inside
Dan
out.
and Jules at Newcastle, that would be perfect.
Imagine.
More seriously, Eddie Howe, and he said it himself in his press conference before the game against Bournemouth, worried that everything that Dan Ashworth knows about what Newcastle have been working on for the last since he arrived at the club, that he will take that with him to United.
And rightly so, because he's obviously working behind the scenes, Dan Ashworth, on potential young players, potential incoming talent that he scouted, and all that. As I mentioned, the analysis team and the data guys have got a profile of players that Newcastle probably would have wanted to have signed either this summer or younger players to try and be good in a few years' time. All of a sudden now he's going to take that intel, he's going to give that information all to Man United. I even think putting him on garden leave doesn't really matter, because you can still make a phone call.
Yeah, true.
You can still tell Man United what players Newcastle are looking at.
Yeah,
so it's a bit messy. So to answer your question, I just think if you're Newcastle, get as much money as you can. Yeah, that solves the problem.
I agree. And what about Manchester United and Rasmus Højlund, Don? Because he scored 2 more goals, they won another game, and that second goal, there was a bit of a debate between you and I if he meant that kind of chest.
He meant it.
Okay, I believe you.
They're in good form, 4 wins on the spin in the Premier League. I'm still torn.
Are you on board? Yeah, I was going to say, are you convinced or not?
No, I'm not convinced. Not yet. Not yet. It took Erik ten Hag an awful long time to figure out that Antony was never the answer.
Yeah.
And when you looked at the relationship and the lack of service to Rasmus Højlund throughout the season, it was blatantly obvious. You keep Rashford on the left-hand side, you take Garnacho away from that position, and you put him on the right side. I mean, that is like staggeringly obvious.
Yeah.
Because then the front man's going to get more service.
Yeah.
So even though Rashford on the left side, dropping in on his right, is he's not going to get many assists to Højlund just because of the dynamic of chopping inside. But when you've got Garnacho, he can come inside, but more importantly, get to the byline, he's going to put crosses in. I think he meant the second goal. I think it was very instinctive. As a player, when you're in that position, it's amazing how at the start of the season, he wouldn't have been in that position, or he wouldn't have finished it. Just form.
Yeah, for sure.
That little bit of luck. But I think once the ball got shanked to him from Garnacho, he instinctively knew where he was. He's chested it towards goal. That's when you're relying on a tiny bit of luck, whether it goes in or not.
Yeah.
But credit him, he's in amazing form. And listen, we've all seen him at Atalanta for quite a few years. He's a terrific young player. Yeah. He just needs a little bit of time. You go into Man United, it's not easy. You have service. It makes his job a lot more easier. Yeah, for sure. And I think they're on the right track, put it this way, but I'm not convinced.
Definitely.